Imagine wake up tomorrow morning, clicking the power button on your computer, and instead of seeing your desktop wallpaper, you are greeted by a glaring red screen telling you that your copy of Windows is no longer genuine. You try to type in your password, but the keyboard doesn't respond because your login privileges have been completely revoked. You reach for your phone to check Reddit, and you realize that you aren't alone. Thousands of people across 19 American states are experiencing the exact same thing. Microsoft has just flipped a switch, and for millions of users, the operating system they paid for has essentially become a digital paperweight. This isn't a hypothetical glitch or a minor update bug anymore. We are looking at a massive suspension of Windows activation services that is preventing people from even getting past the lock screen. The tech world is in an absolute frenzy, and today, we are going to dive deep into why this is happening, which states are affected, and what this means for the future of digital ownership. We have spent years talking about the transition to software as a service, but this situation takes it to a terrifying new level. For the first time in history, a geopolitical or legal dispute has translated into the immediate deactivation of essential home and business technology on a massive scale within the United States. Reports started trickling in late last night from users in states like Ohio, Texas, and Pennsylvania, claiming that their Windows 10 and Windows 11 machines were suddenly throwing activation errors. At first, everyone thought it was just the usual Microsoft server hiccup. We have seen these before, where the activation servers go down for an hour and then everything returns to normal. But this time was different. Users started reporting that after a forced restart, they were being locked out of their accounts entirely, with a message stating that due to regional compliance issues, activation has been suspended. The scale of this is unprecedented. We are talking about 19 states where the basic infrastructure of computing is currently under threat. If you are in one of these regions, your local government offices, your hospitals, and your local small businesses are all running on software that Microsoft has effectively neutralized. The big question everyone is asking is, how can they do this? When you bought your laptop or built your gaming rig, you likely saw that Windows sticker or paid for a digital license key. You assumed that once the key was entered and the checkmark appeared, the software was yours. But the fine print in the Microsoft Service Agreement has always been a ticking time bomb. It clearly states that Windows is licensed, not sold. And as of this week, Microsoft is proving that those aren't just empty legal words. They are exercising a level of control over your hardware that should make every tech enthusiast very nervous. Now let's look at the specific states involved. While Microsoft hasn't released the full official list in a press release, feedback and heat maps from outage tracking sites indicate a heavy concentration in the Midwest and parts of the South. We are seeing massive clusters of lockouts in states like Michigan, Indiana, and Tennessee. The common thread seems to be tied to a recent legislative push regarding digital privacy and data sovereignty. Apparently, these 19 states were in the process of implementing local laws that conflict with Microsoft's new telemetry and data harvesting requirements for the upcoming artificial intelligence features in Windows. Rather than modifying the software to comply with 19 different sets of rules, it appears Microsoft decided to simply pull the plug on activation services in those jurisdictions until a legal settlement is reached. In their eyes, if they can't collect the data they want, you don't get to use the OS. This is a massive blow to the concept of the right to repair and digital sovereignty. Think about what this does to a student trying to finish a thesis or a small business owner trying to run payroll. If you can't log in, you can't access your local files. Even if your data is stored on a local hard drive, the gatekeeper has locked the front door and taken the key back to Redmond. This move has sparked an immediate backlash from civil hardware advocacy groups who argue that Microsoft is essentially taking modern life hostage to force political outcomes. The implications for the enterprise sector are even worse. Imagine a fleet of 500 computers in a logistics firm in Florida suddenly deactivating because the state legislature passed a bill Microsoft didn't like. It creates a level of instability that makes the entire Windows ecosystem look like a liability rather than an asset. For those of you listening who are currently unaffected, don't think you are safe just because you don't live in one of the 19 states. This sets a precedent that can be applied anywhere. If Microsoft survives the legal fallout of this suspension, it means they have the green light to use activation as a weapon whenever a local government or even a large ISP disagrees with their corporate policies. We are entering an era where your computer is only yours as long as you stay in the good graces of a trillion-dollar corporation. The community response has been swift, with a massive surge in interest for Linux distributions. People are realizing that having an operating system that doesn't need to phone home to a motherboard in Washington just to let you open a Word document is no longer a niche hobby. It is a necessity for reliability. If you are stuck on that activation screen right now, there are a few things people are trying, although success is limited. Some users have found that disconnecting their Ethernet cable and trying to boot in safe mode allows them to at least see their files, but the core functionality of Windows is still crippled. Any attempt to reconnect to the internet results in an immediate relock. This shows that the lockout mechanism is baked deeply into the kernel of the OS. It isn't just a simple flag in a registry. It is a fundamental block at the account level. Microsoft has designed Windows to be so interconnected with their cloud services that it can essentially be remotely dismantled piece by piece. First, they take away the wallpaper and the taskbar settings. Then they take away your ability to run third-party apps. And finally, they take away your login. The legal experts are already weighing in, and this is going to be a battle for the history books. Some are calling it a breach of contract on a massive scale. If a consumer pays for a lifetime license of Windows 11, and Microsoft unilaterally revokes that license because of where the consumer lives, that sounds like a class action lawsuit waiting to happen. However, Microsoft's legal team is one of the most powerful on the planet. They will likely argue that their terms of service allow them to modify or terminate access to services based on regional laws and regulations. They will put the blame on the state governments, saying that the local laws made it impossible for Microsoft to provide a secure and compliant experience. It is a classic move of shifting the blame while the user is the one who suffers the consequences. We also have to consider the timing of this. Microsoft is pushing harder than ever for their Copilot Plus PCs and their AI integration. These features require constant connection to servers and massive amounts of data processing. By suspending activation in states that are trying to limit that data flow, Microsoft is essentially saying that their AI future is mandatory. If you want to live in a state with strong privacy laws, you might have to give up Windows. This is a chilling thought for anyone who cares about their digital footprint. It turns the choice of an operating system into a political statement. Are you willing to be tracked in exchange for the convenience of Windows? Or are you willing to move your entire workflow to a different platform to keep your privacy? The ripple effects in the tech industry are already showing. Stock prices from major PC manufacturers like Dell and HP are seeing volatility because the vast majority of their machines ship with Windows pre-installed. If a significant portion of the US market can no longer activate these machines, hardware sales will plummet. Why would anyone in Texas buy a new laptop today if there is a 50% chance it will be locked within a week? We are seeing retail stores in the affected states literally pulling laptops off the shelves or putting up warning signs that the software might not function as intended. This is a disaster for the entire supply chain, and it all stems from a single company's desire to maintain absolute control over the activation cycle. For the power users out there, this is the ultimate "I told you so" moment. We have been warning about the dangers of cloud-tied accounts and online activation for over a decade. Back in the days of Windows XP or even Windows 7, you could activate over the phone or use a physical key that worked offline forever. Once you were in, you were in. The OS didn't care about your IP address or your state's latest privacy bill. But as we moved to Windows 8 and then 10, Microsoft slowly eroded that independence. They made the Microsoft account almost mandatory for most users. They moved the activation logic from your local machine to their remote servers. And now, the true cost of that convenience is being revealed. We have traded our digital independence for a system that can be turned off like a light switch. Let's talk about the impact on education. In many of these 19 states, school districts have invested millions into one-to-one laptop programs. Teachers rely on Windows-based software for grading, lesson plans, and remote learning. With activation suspended, these districts are at a standstill. We are hearing reports of students unable to submit final projects and teachers unable to access their curriculum. When a tech giant decides to play hardball with state legislators, it is the students and the teachers who are on the front lines of the disruption. It raises the question of whether public institutions should even be allowed to rely on proprietary software that can be remotely disabled. This could be the tipping point that pushes schools toward open-source alternatives like Chrome OS or Linux-based systems that offer more local control. In the midst of this chaos, Microsoft's support channels are completely overwhelmed. Users are reporting wait times of over 6 hours, only to be told by a bot that their region is currently not supported for activation. There is no clear timeline for a resolution. Microsoft says they are working with local authorities, but local authorities are saying that Microsoft is being unreasonable. It is a standoff where the collateral damage is the average person who just wants to check their email. The lack of transparency is perhaps the most frustrating part. If you are going to disable the computers of millions of people, the least you can do is provide a clear step-by-step explanation of why and how they can get their access back. Instead, we get vague statements about compliance and regional adjustments. This situation also highlights a hidden danger in our modern tech stack, which is the lack of a backup plan. Most people don't have a second computer running a different OS. Most people don't even know how to boot from a USB drive. We have become so accustomed to the seamless nature of modern tech that we have forgotten how fragile it really is. This activation suspension is a wake-up call. It is a reminder that we need to have local backups of our important data that are not dependent on a specific OS login. It is a reminder that knowing how to navigate a second operating system is a vital digital survival skill. This isn't just about Microsoft. It is about the entire industry's move toward a centralized, controlled future. What happens next? The governors of several affected states have already called for emergency sessions to address the technological lockout. There is talk of filing injunctions to force Microsoft to restore service while the legal issues are debated. If a judge grants an injunction, we might see activation return within a few days. But that is just a temporary bandage on a much deeper wound. The trust is gone. Even if Windows starts working again tomorrow, every user in those 19 states will always have that nagging thought in the back of their mind. Could this happen again? Will my computer be locked next month during tax season? That kind of uncertainty is poison for a tech brand. We are also seeing a massive surge in the gray market for older versions of Windows and activation bypass tools. While we never recommend using unofficial software or pirated cracks due to the security risks, it is easy to see why people are desperate. When the official way to use your computer is blocked, people will find unofficial ways. This ironically makes the entire ecosystem less secure, which is the exact opposite of what Microsoft claims to want. By forcing this lockout, they are driving their own users into the arms of potentially malicious third-party developers who offer a way to bypass the activation screen. It is a security nightmare that could have been avoided with a more sensible approach to regional compliance. As we look at the broader picture, this 19-state suspension might be the end of an era. We might look back at this as the moment when the general public finally realized that they don't own their digital lives. It could lead to new federal laws that mandate a basic level of offline functionality for all operating systems sold in the United States. We have laws that protect us from having our water or electricity turned off without due process. Why don't we have laws that protect our access to the tools we use for our livelihoods? In the 21st century, a computer is just as essential as any other utility, and this move by Microsoft treats it like a luxury that can be revoked at a whim. To wrap this up, if you are in one of the 19 states, stay tuned to local news and tech forums. The situation is evolving by the minute. Make sure you are backing up your data to external drives as soon as you find a way to access your files. And for everyone else, take this as a sign to diversify. Don't put all your eggs in one corporate basket. Explore other operating systems. Keep your data local, and stay informed about the laws in your state. Technology should empower us, not control us, and it is up to us to demand that the companies we support respect our digital rights. Microsoft might have the power to suspend activation today, but the users have the power to decide which companies deserve their business in the future. This is a landmark moment in the history of tech, and the consequences will be felt for years to come. Keep your eyes on the screen, because the battle for your desktop has just begun. The conversation is shifting toward what a viable alternative truly looks like. For a long time, the argument against Linux was that it was too difficult for the average user, or that it lacked the software support needed for professional work. But when the alternative is a system that literally refuses to let you log in based on your zip code, a little bit of a learning curve suddenly doesn't seem so bad. We are seeing community-led initiatives to help people migrate their data and find equivalent software on open platforms. This grassroots movement is the silver lining in this otherwise dark cloud. It shows the resilience of the tech community and our ability to adapt when the giants fail us. We are also hearing from corporate IT managers who are now in full damage control mode. Many of them are looking at their contracts with renewed scrutiny. The idea of a master kill switch being held by a third party is now a top-tier security risk for any serious organization. We might see a shift toward long-term service branches of Windows that are disconnected from the standard activation servers, or a move toward custom-built internal OS versions for large enterprises. The dream of a unified, cloud-connected global OS is dying, and in its place we are seeing the rise of digital borders. As we continue to monitor the 19 states, we are seeing the impact on local economies. E-commerce businesses are reporting a drop in activity because a significant number of their customers can't even get online to shop. Digital services that rely on Windows-based servers are suffering outages. It is a domino effect that clearly shows how deeply Windows is woven into the fabric of the American economy. Microsoft has created a situation where their corporate interests are directly at odds with the economic stability of millions of people. It is a bold, and many would say dangerous gamble. The psychological impact on the users can't be ignored either. There is a sense of violation when the tool you use every day, a tool that sits in your private home, suddenly tells you that you are not allowed to use it. It shatters the illusion of the personal computer. It feels less like a tool and more like a surveillance device that requires constant permission to exist. This feeling of being watched and controlled is exactly what the state privacy laws were trying to prevent, and ironically, Microsoft's reaction has only proven the legislators' points. Regardless of how this ends, whether through a court order or a corporate U-turn, the damage to the Windows brand is significant. You can't just tell 19 states that they are persona non grata in your digital ecosystem and expect them to come back with a smile once the service is restored. People remember being locked out. People remember the fear of losing their data. They remember the frustration of being a pawn in a game they never asked to play. The tech world is changing, and this week has been one of the biggest catalysts for that change in a generation. Keep your hardware safe, keep your data local, and most importantly, stay vigilant. We are entering uncharted territory where the rules of digital ownership are being rewritten in real time. Whether you are a Windows fan, a Linux advocate, or an Apple user, this affects you. It is a story about power, control, and the future of the devices that define our lives. The 19 states are just the beginning, and what happens next will determine the shape of the digital world for our children. Stay tuned because this is far from over. Everyone is waiting for Microsoft's next move, but perhaps the more important move is what the users do next. Technology is a tool, not a master, and it is time we started acting like it. The lockout might be active, but our voices don't require activation. Let yours be heard.